Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
I've begun using a really cool service from Aviva IQ, and it's made my life so much easier. My guests love receiving all the important details about their stay exactly when they need it. And I love all the 5-star reviews I'm getting on communication. Check them out at www.avivaiq.com. Welcome everyone, another news episode of Airbnb. And today I'm co-hosting with Nicole Prentice Williams, who is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Hostfully. So Nicole, welcome, and how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Jasper?
I'm very well. I am in Santiago in Chile. I just spent 2 weeks in Florianopolis, one of my favorite places in the world, in the south of Brazil. But now I'm back in Santiago and looking at some properties to invest in.
Fantastic. I am right up the coast from you in Los Angeles.
Just a few thousand miles north.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to be here with you this morning. Thanks for having me.
How are things going at Hostfully? I hear things are going pretty well, huh?
Yeah, we're getting ready for a big vacation rental management conference that's going on in Georgia next week. And we have another one coming up here in California about 5 weeks later. So yeah, we're growing and it's going really well. Awesome.
That's great to hear. Well, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from the community that people really love the guidebooks and the fact that they don't have to pay for it. So,
awesome. But if you do pay for it, you get it in 4 languages, which is incredible.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That
Portuguese, French, Spanish, English. Yeah. So
what about Dutch?
Maybe soon. I'll talk to Noah.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the news for this week. I think the biggest headline that came out was about the IPO. We've talked about it a few times in recent weeks, but this was the first time that Brian Chexie actually gave somewhat of a timeline. He basically said that he thought the process of getting ready for an IPO takes about 2 years. And then he said that they're probably about halfway through that project. And that would imply that they have about 1 year to go until they are ready to go public.
Yeah, he has alluded to that. He won't give a date. He won't put it in black and white there. So he's not held to it quite yet. But it sounds like it's all headed in the right direction. And I guess the speculation is just when.
And it's interesting to think about like what's the reason that they want to do this IPO, because they have so much money. They have like $3 billion in cash. And he mentioned this in the interview actually, because he said the main reason for them to go public would be to provide their shareholders with more liquidity or more instant liquidity, which makes a lot of sense, of course. I mean, imagine you've invested in Airbnb. I know Sequoia Capital invested $600,000 back in 2009 or 2008. And I think they were the first like sort of major investment that they received. I mean, that's worth, how much would that be worth right now? I mean, I don't know, but that's probably worth like billions, And so it'd be very convenient for them to probably offload some of their shares.
Yeah. And he says that everybody's been patient. The investors have been patient. It's been a while. When did they invest that money?
I think it was 2009, I believe.
Yeah. So it would be great for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because then they could use that money to reinvest in other startups.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess they're positioning themselves by we read unloading some properties and then looking at some other kind of diversifying their services as well.
Right. Because, It's interesting. I posted this news article in a group that I have on Facebook, Airbnb News, and somebody commented on it. It's actually somebody I know, a host from San Francisco. His name is Keith. And he immediately said, not going to happen. And so I was interested to see why he thought that. And he made some good points. He says that obviously the investors are eager, but he says that the stock market right now wouldn't be so interested because there's a lot of legal uncertainty. There's a lot of lawsuits going on in Airbnb land. There's a lot of regulation. A lot of cities are putting in regulations, like we will mention later in this episode. We'll talk about San Diego. Basically, what they need to do is they need to diversify from the accommodations business and show that they can make money in other businesses, like the trips and the experiences, for example. Because if they're only dependent on the homes and there's a lot of legal uncertainty there, that might not get like a very attractive IPO price.
Right. Well, they're also looking at long-term rentals, I read as well. And they have connected with a research firm in San Francisco to look at that. So they wouldn't hit as many roadblocks if they were offering long-term rental options as well.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. They have a website. Part of their website is actually for sublets. But I don't think very many people use it. And I didn't even know it existed, honestly. But
and it's been around for like 6 years. And I don't think there's much marketing or advertising going on for it.
No, absolutely not. The legal issues are definitely something that they have to solve before they do the IPO. And there's a lot of signs that they're actually working on that. I mean, they've cooperated with the governments in Amsterdam and in London to basically Airbnb is now, they're not permitting hosts to rent out for more than 60 days in Amsterdam and then 90 days in London. My Airbnb listing in Amsterdam is actually, I'm at 60 days now. So my calendar is completely blocked. Like I can't do anything. And I've actually sold my house. So, that's the end of the game for me in Amsterdam. But that's cool. I'm looking at some other properties in other places. But anyway, there's an article that came out that they had closed 923 listings in San Francisco. And these were all listings that were owned by people who had more than one listing, right? Because they have this policy in place that's called one host, one home. And so every host is only supposed to have one listing.
Right. Yeah. They're also looking at a flight booking tool, so that could diversify them as well.
Right. There's another article in which Chesky talks about that he thinks the next revolution will be in air travel. And he doesn't mention that, Airbnb is going to be the company responsible for this revolution. But one of the things that he says is, he says the airline industry hasn't changed in decades, which is very true, other than the fact that you're not allowed to smoke anymore and that the food used to be much better. But he says, I went on a plane in the 80s. I go on it today. It's very similar. I think that's a good point. Although I don't know, like in the 80s, I don't know how old he was back then, but he must have been pretty young.
Yeah. There are some private jets too that are offering service. I know that my husband flies up to the Bay Area quite often, and he's been using Jet Suite, which is, he said, painless compared to commercial travel. So I think there's already changes that are happening, and I think it's ripe for disruption for sure. I'm sure, so many people do. It's just air travel has changed quite a bit since 9/11, and it needs some disruption.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I've recently signed up for a company called JetSmarter, which I'm sure does a similar thing. But basically the way it works is I pay a yearly fee and I can go on as many private jets as I want. And
that's fantastic.
I mean, it was a great experience. I flew from London to Paris, and that was my first one. And it was such a great experience. I showed up like 20 minutes before the flight, and you get welcomed in a special little terminal. Somebody will just takes your bag. You get some food, you get some coffee, and then you just wait for 10 minutes, and then you just walk into the plane. There's literally no hassle.
Yeah,
and then also when I landed in Paris, there was a police officer right there on the tarmac who looked at my passport, and that's it. I was ready to
Wow.
go. It was
And you
absolutely
felt
fantastic.
safe?
Yeah,
You felt
I
the
loved
security
it.
was good?
Well, I mean, there basically was no security. But
Well, that's the one thing. I mean, you take the security out, it's hassle-free, but are we, how safe, I guess, do you feel?
well, I don't know. I felt pretty safe.
Okay. All right.
But it was so much fun because it's a small plane. It was only 4 people, and when you're talking to the pilot the whole time, and you can look in the cockpit, and the landing was really cool as well because you could really just look through the front windows and see exactly what the pilots are seeing. It was I thought it was it's a very cool experience, and so much. Oh my god, I loved it. It was so hassle free. It really was amazing, and met some pretty interesting people on the plane too. So because it's much more intimate. There's only 4 people on the plane, so I ended up talking to all of them pretty much. Anyway, that's an interesting topic, but I guess it does have a little bit to do with Airbnb since it's also in the sharing economy space. But who knows? Yeah, maybe Airbnb is going to go into the private jets.
Yeah, that would be a smart place to invest or partner with, I think. Yeah, definitely. But if they're doing a booking tool, I don't know. That would be interesting to see how that works. How did you book your private jet?
I mean, the JetSmarter app is really cool. You can do everything through the app. So it has a functionality where you take a picture of your ID, and then you just in the messenger, you're literally talking to a flight representative. And so you just go on your phone and you see you upload a picture of your ID. Okay, and then you get the itinerary, you get on your smartphone. Everything takes place in the JetSmarter app.
Awesome. So it was easy.
It's extremely convenient. And then, when I was at the airport, I actually got a call from one of the flight representatives who called me, and he's like, "Hey, are you at the airport yet? We're here for you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." I was literally a minute away. So it's very personal. It's extremely convenient.
Awesome.
Hosts, does it feel like you're spending way too much time responding to questions from your Airbnb guests? Is the fear of a possible bad review keeping you up at night? I recently learned about a really helpful service called Aviva IQ. With Aviva IQ, my workload and worries have reduced dramatically. All I had to do was link my Airbnb listings to Aviva IQ, create my messages, and schedule delivery times. That's it. I can't believe how easy it was to set up. Now I can sit back and relax knowing that my guests receive all the important details on time, every time. Everybody sleeps better. Check them out at www.avivaiq.com. Yes, so let's see, what else should we talk about? So those 923 listings being wiped out in San Francisco. Now, you guys are based in San Francisco, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, and actually one of our founders is a host there.
Yeah, I've stayed with him.
Oh, okay. You know then.
I know all about David's little house. It was it was a very pleasant stay. But
Awesome.
There's some more interesting numbers in the article. It says 317 were entire homes, 26 were private rooms, and 580 were shared rooms. That's something that really surprised me because I don't really know a lot of people who rent out a shared room. So, I mean, because that means you're renting out a couch in your living room or an airbed.
Yeah, I would guess that's more like a couch surfing, but they're charging for it, perhaps.
Right. So I don't know. I just don't know anyone who does the shared room letting thing. So I was just surprised to see.
Why would they close those down?
I don't know. That sounds very strange to me. I would expect that most of them would be entire homes because that's kind of where the resistance came from, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But
there are companies that are representing those types in San Francisco. I guess the fines and stuff go to the owner, not the management company. So they're going to, continue to try and rent and make some money until I guess they get caught.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a matter of how many resources, what kind of resources San Francisco has to go after that. Is it worth it for them?
Right. And the article also mentions that there's 10,000 listings in San Francisco. And in San Francisco, Airbnb hosts are required to register with the city, but only 1,877 are registered, according to the Office of Short-Term Rentals. So that's less than 20%. So I guess there's a lot of hosts who still need to register before the city of San Francisco will be happy.
I guess, well, you have to pay annually I would assume you have to pay annually to register. I don't know what that price is, or to be a registered host. Wouldn't you think?
I don't know how much it costs. All I know is that when I was in San Francisco last year, when I was staying with David, I interviewed a host, Bruce Bennett, and he's very active in the Airbnb community in San Francisco. And he showed me sort of a step-by-step process of registering, and it was quite complicated, I have to say. It's like they make you jump through quite a lot of hoops. So that's probably the reason why a lot of people don't register, because it seemed like a kind of a hassle.
Yeah. And I read in San Diego, they're no longer allowing short-term vacation rentals.
Yeah, that's new to me. That must have come out like today, or when was it? Oh no, actually March 16th. So a few days ago. So they've completely outlawed it, didn't they?
Yeah, it sounds like they're not permitted under the code as it's currently written. So I'm not sure if it's been going on illegally, or sounds like they didn't just rewrite it. But we have a couple of clients down in San Diego, so that we are actually speaking with tomorrow. So I'll be getting some more inside scoop from on the ground down there, seeing how this could affect that industry there.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe we can talk more about that next week. But it's not just Airbnb. It's all vacation rentals, all short-term rentals, basically, that they've banned now.
Right.
Let's move on to something a little bit more light and a little bit more humorous and funny, because there's a really good article came out, the Strait Times, which is a Singaporean newspaper or website. And Joe Gebbia went to Singapore to launch Airbnb trips there. And he did a really long interview with one of the reporters for this newspaper. And I think it's interesting to share some of the stuff in this article, because a lot of people know about Brian's background, because he's kind of like the main guy at Airbnb. But of course, the other two founders, they're also really interesting to look at their stories, and there's a lot of interesting things in this interview. First of all, Joe Gebbia, he grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and he when he was in middle school, I think in third grade. Is that middle school? Third grade?
Yeah. No, it's elementary school here. Yeah, elementary.
Elementary school. Okay.
Yeah, even younger. He was probably like 8 or 9. Yeah, he was an entrepreneur way back then.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So I mean, his entrepreneurial skills really surfaced early, because in third grade he was drawing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And for those of you who are a little older like myself, that was a very popular cartoon series back in the day. And
it still is, actually.
It still is?
Kids. Yeah, it's huge now. We go to Ninja Turtle parties.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, and they've had a few movies out.
Okay, I'm not so up to date anymore on the latest news on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but anyway, he was drawing these things and selling them to classmates for $2 a pop. And the business did so well that the parents complained to teachers that their kids were asking for extra lunch money, and they didn't know why.
And it wasn't for nutrition.
It was not for nutrition.
That's funny. Yeah, he was making money at a business plan way back then. It's great. A great story.
But that wasn't his last enterprise. He did some other things as well. But first he went to the Rhode Island School of Design, which is where he met Brian Chesky. And the day he graduated, he launched a business called Crit Buns. It was a company that produced portable butt pads. And apparently they were very comfortable to sit on. And the name was inspired by the long hours design students sit around critiquing one another's works in front of teachers and peers. These seats can be quite uncomfortable. So he decided to design a seat that would be more comfortable to sit on.
Yeah, he could have. I don't know if he sold them at stadiums, but that's where I imagine he would have made some good money off of the butt pads.
Right, yeah. He said it was ramen profitable, which basically means just enough to make rent and ramen.
Oh my goodness. He's come a long way, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it was reasonably successful because he did manage to sell it in the gift shop at the New York's Museum of Modern Art. So that's a fair accomplishment. But the number one thing that he learned from this experience was something that one of his professors taught him, which was a formula on how to deal with rejections, because he tried to get some investors, and we all know that when you're trying to get investors, like 99% of the time they walk away within 1 minute. So that happened to him as well. And then his professor taught him the formula SW square plus WC is MO, which stands for, when you have a new idea, some will love it, but some won't. Plus, who cares equals move on.
That's great. That's a great formula. I love it.
Yeah.
I have to remember that one.
It's pretty funny, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could have been his first big hit company, though, if he had a different audience than shoppers at New York's MoMA.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody there is walking around. They're really not sitting. So you got to go someplace where the buns are going to get sore.
Yeah, that was probably a good lesson for him, where he thought, he probably thought about his creation as art. And that's probably why, he wanted to sell it there. But I think the football stadium would be a better place.
Yeah, Yankee Stadium.
Anyway, he went on to start another company, which he also said was mildly successful. It was called Ecolect, a website for designers looking for eco-friendly raw materials for their products. But then, of course, he moved to San Francisco and started living together with his best friend, Brian. And when they ran out of money, they couldn't afford their rent because their landlords had just raised their rent by 20%. And that's how I guess it was Joe Gebbia who came up with the idea to rent out an airbed in their room. So he went out to buy two $20 airbeds, and he quickly built a website called Airbed and Breakfast. And that's how it all started.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that was about pretty much 10 years ago. It was in 2007. So it's already been, Airbnb has been around for a decade now.
Oh, that's crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
That is crazy. It's been 10 years. Wow.
Yeah. I feel like I've been hosting since 2012, but those years have flown by like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Us too. 2012 is when I think that's when they really started to grow. I don't know what round of funding that was for them.
Mm-hmm. No, it went really fast after that. I remember when I started, they had like 500,000 hosts, and now it's like 3 million. So it's definitely been some spectacular growth.
Well, he talks about it. He says this is a 1 in a million shot to turn it into a global business. But, they did it. It's really amazing. And they really are disrupted the travel industry, and global is really their message with the experiences and the trips and just thinking on a global level. It's amazing what they've done.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we're getting to the end of this episode. And by the way, I want to mention, I post these news articles in this Facebook group called Airbnb News. So if you want to sort of keep updated with what's going on, of course, you can listen to this podcast episode, but I also post them there. And also I have a Facebook group called Airbnb Academy, which is very active. It has about 500 members now, where we discuss all sorts of things related to Airbnb, questions about hosting, experiences, etc. So, feel free to join. It's a free open group, so you can just join. So I hope to see you there. And Nicole, thank you so much for joining today. And it was a pleasure to co-host this episode with you.
Thank you, Jasper. It was a pleasure being with you. And thank you for the invitation.
And of course, in 4 weeks, we'll be talking again.
Yes.
So I wish you all the best at Hostfully. I know you guys are very busy. I'm very appreciative of your time. And
thank you for your support.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Like I said, I'm still getting positive comments from my guest about the guidebook I sent them. So I'm all support for you guys.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate it.
And for the listeners, thanks for listening. And of course, every Monday there's an episode and every Thursday there's an episode. So stay tuned and I'll see you next week.
Get paid for your pet. 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 Get paid for your pet.